Forget-me-not flower. In a beautiful land called the Flower Kingdom, flowers bloomed all year long. One day, the flower fairy came to the kingdom. She was graceful, with wings that sparkled like diamonds. She went straight to the Flower King, who ruled over the kingdom with kindness.
Welcome, Flower Fairy, the king said. I have a task for you. Can you give names to all the flowers in my kingdom?
The Flower Fairy smiled and replied, "Of course, your Majesty. I will name them one by one." The fairy began her journey across the kingdom. She visited a tall purple flower. She gently touched its petals and said, "Your name is Tulip." The flower bowed its head and said, "Thank you, Flower Fairy. I will remember my name." Next, she found a flower with soft red petals. "You will be called Rose," the fairy said. The flower whispered, "I love my name. Thank you." Then she reached a small yellow flower and declared, "You are Daffodil." The flower cheerfully replied, "I will not forget my name." The fairy noticed a blue flower swaying in the wind. "Your name is Blue Flower," she said kindly. The blue flower nodded happily. "Thank you, Flower Fairy." The fairy continued and named more flowers. When she saw a bright white flower with a golden center, she said, "You will be Daisy." Daisy whispered, "I love my name. I will always remember it." Finally, she stopped at a fiery red flower. "You are Poppy," she said softly. Poppy smiled brightly. "Thank you, Flower Fairy. I will never forget my name." After naming all the flowers, the fairy gathered them together and said, "Remember your names well. When I return, I will ask each of you to tell me your name." The flowers promised, "We will not forget." Months later, the flower fairy returned to the flower kingdom. She smiled as she saw the flowers dancing in the sun. "Now, let me see if you remember your names," she said. She went to the tulip first. "What is your name?" she asked. "My name is Tulip," the flower answered confidently. The fairy nodded and moved to the rose. "What is your name?" "My name is Rose," the flower said proudly. She visited the daffodil. "What is your name?" "I am Daffodil," the flower replied. The fairy smiled and moved to the daisy. "What about you? What is your name?" "My name is Daisy," the flower said, her petals glowing in the sunlight. The fairy turned to Poppy. "What is your name?" "My name is Poppy," the flower said brightly. Finally, she went to the blue flower. "And you, what is your name?" The blue flower looked down sadly. I, I don't remember," it said softly. The flower fairy thought for a moment and then said, "From now on, your name will be Forget Me Not. This name will remind you never to forget who you are." The blue flower's petals glowed with a soft blue light. "Thank you, Flower Fairy. I will never forget my name again." The Flower Fairy smiled and spread her arms wide. A magical wind began to blow, carrying the scent of flowers across the kingdom. The fairy lifted into the air and said, "Goodbye, my dear flowers. I will always be with you in your names and your beauty." The flowers waved their petals as the fairy disappeared into the sky, leaving behind a kingdom full of names, memories, and happiness.